We're on. It's on.
We're on, baby. We've been
We're on.
making we've been making moves.
We, you have, we all have.
Yeah, we've been getting a lot more people have been listening to the podcast lately, I think.
Oh yeah. Well, for sure. I mean, even the full form podcast, I think we're getting like not far away from 1,000 views on the full form, like the whole hour and a half.
Are we getting that many on Spotify, Shem?
No, I'm talking about YouTube here. I didn't even check. I don't have access to Spotify metrics.
That would be awesome if we're actually getting that.
Yeah.
So here, look, because we only have 2 hours, because this is we keep doing these remote podcasts, so this is something that we're gonna have to try and get used to. So if any of the audience are listening to this, we do apologize for the lack of consistency. When are you coming back? Coming back in like 3 weeks?
Yeah, 3 weeks. I'm April 8th is when I'm back.
Okay, perfect. So we'll hop right into it. So we got the China tariffs. China is tariffing Canada. There's no mention at all in the media about this, and I think I know why, which we'll get into a little bit later.
Yep.
We're going to talk about the election results of the Liberal Party, of course. So Mark Carney was elected.
Cor
I am
Coronated, please. Let's be honest.
coronated. Yeah, you're right. So Mark Carney was coronated, and so we're definitely going to get into that. I do have some opinions to offer on that, and I am going to try and keep it as objective as I possibly can today, right now.
Sure. Sure.
Um, the left wants to make a coalition to prevent conservatives. We're going to talk about how there's rhetoric that they want to basically ban X. I hope this never happens, and we're going to talk about why we think it's so dangerous. And just to preface this, I find it very interesting how the NDP wants to join the Liberals, considering that Mark Carney is like, he has that allure of a billionaire banker. And typically speaking, they're not supposed to like billionaire bankers. So this is, I don't know, I find it kind of odd. And
Yeah, but you're talking about the leader of the NDP is, after all, the Maserati Marxist. So I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, there's that. And then we do have an interesting graph. I don't know if we're going to be able to get it up, but we'll talk about it. And I did see the same graph that you were talking about on X. So there's an ideology. There's a big divergence between ideologies of men and with women. In other words, men think one way, women think a different way, especially amongst millennials. I think that women kind of, if you're taught to talk about the liberal or the talk about the political parties that they actually support, I would say they probably support the liberals, and then the men, typically speaking, especially our age, they support the conservatives, generally speaking. And then we're going to talk about a bunch of facts. I got a bunch of stuff that I was looking up about Mark Carney and what this guy is all about. And so we'll just start off with this. I want to get started on Carney, and I'm going to let you get started. You talked, yeah, we talked about him.
Uh-huh.
I want to say 4 or 5 episodes ago, and how he's trying to brand himself as the outsider.
Yep.
How, in our opinion, he's definitely not an outsider. And if you're to look at it objectively, I would also say that he's not an outsider either. So I'll let you get started on this. We got a brand new prime minister. Thoughts?
Yeah, well, first of all, I voted against him. I was with her. I was with Freeland. Big fan of Freeland, clearly. Jokes aside, though, we do have a new prime minister who received a proportion of votes in Canada, counting or tabulating roughly 150,000 people voted for him, and that makes him a new prime minister. I issue with it. Of course, some people are going to be saying that, in Canada, we use the Westminster parliamentary system. As such, we don't directly elect a prime minister, and I concur that is very true. However, this is near unprecedented because Mark Carney is about to be sworn in, obviously, as prime minister, and yet does not hold a seat in the House of Commons. He cannot sit in parliament, which is, I would say, troubling, because then you cannot be held to account in the people's house. One of the most important function of parliament is being able to question and hold accountable the government. This is done through the question period, which often gives rise to amazing clips. I know that Poilievre is very good in those clips. However, in this instance, we won't be able to question the prime minister whatsoever, and I find that troubling. Carney comes from a background of elite banking and also huge financial institutions. On itself or at face value, it's not an issue. I don't have a problem with someone's pedigree in such a regard. My biggest concern with Carney is his lies, his constant incestuous lies. If he came out and said, look, I come from the big banks, I come from a very tightly knit circle, and I do rub shoulders with the elites, and you know what, that could be concerning, but here is what I want to do with Canada, I'd be like, he's honest. But the fact that he flat out says, I'm an outsider, only to backtrack later on and say, no, actually, I am an insider, and that's exactly what we need, is that flip-flopping, typical politician that I have a huge issue with. And that's not even starting to talk about the other facts, by the way, where he is, and it's trending on X right now. It's about finding all the funny lies that Carney comes up with because it's becoming almost like a real joke. And I want to put the emphasis on one specific one that he tries to, or he tried to like pass by everyone real quick. He said that the biggest supplier of semiconductors is
I saw
Canada.
that.
You know, he says we supply almost all of their semiconductors, speaking about semiconductors being supplied to the United States, right? In kind of the whole trade war issues going on. Uh, that is a flat out lie. It is categorically black on white, absolutely untrue. And to go on national TV and say that with a straight face is just like, does he believe it or does he think that Canadians are gullible? I don't know. But yeah, not a huge fan of the situation in Canada right now, and it is troubling. And we'll obviously talk more as to why that is. But yeah, what about you? What do you think about this whole Carney
I don't know. It's
issue?
like, well, I don't know. This just doesn't feel very democratic to me. The fact that we have a brand new prime minister, he's not even in parliament, and we just have a new prime minister. It's like, okay, cool. So if, Daniel Smith was talking about it, and I think a lot of Canadians, they want to have an election right now. We'll see if we have an election right away. I think we will get an election right away. And I heard, I forget the gentleman's name, but there's a new podcast that I just started following on YouTube. And so whenever you're elected to parliament, whenever you're elected as prime minister, you have 120 days to disclose all of your financial assets, your financial situation, like what type of businesses you own, what boards you're on. You have 120 days to officially show everyone, to basically open the books and show everything that you have. So I think he's probably going to want to get ahead of this. I also think the second reason why he's probably going to call an election sooner rather than later is he wants to ride the wave. It's kind of like the honeymoon phase right now,
Hmm.
if you will. That's again, if you believe the actual media narrative right now, where everyone in Canada is voting for this guy and he's going to be the savior and this is going to be a brand new cabinet. But the reality is, this is not a brand new cabinet. This is essentially a Justin Trudeau 2.0. And, the cabinet hasn't changed. A lot of the policies from the research that I've been doing, a lot of the policies that he wants to implement are not changing either. And by the way, for those that don't know, Mark Carney has been very involved as an advisor with regards to the economy over the past 5 years. This is not new. So a lot of the policies that Trudeau has implemented, that his team has implemented, are on the advice from Mark Carney. And so right now, again, I just think it's going to be more of the same. We've gone through this, so I'm not going to go through it all over again. But Canada, we are not in a good place economically speaking. We're not in a good place socially with regards to, I feel, how divided the country is right now. And you can tell that the media and the liberals, I got to give it to them though, man. Honestly, this political gamesmanship, I got to tip my hat off to them. It's very, very, very good, but they're sticking a wedge in and they're dividing the population. They're saying orange man bad down south. And by the
Hmm.
way, I don't like the fact that Donald Trump is flip flopping. He's all over the place with tariffs. I don't like the fact that he's tariffing us either. And to be honest, like nobody knows what this guy is going to do next. But the media and the liberals have done an excellent job in putting that wrench, that screwdriver right down the middle, and basically trying to associate Pierre Poilievre, the new name Maple MAGA, they're trying to associate him with Donald Trump, and they're trying to rile up Canadians so that we're distracted from the past 10 years of their track record. That is what's trying to happen right now. And just to add on to this, I'm going to go through just two lies. You mentioned one. So here's one. I don't know why he says this stuff. So he claims that he helped support a balanced budget back in the day while Paul Martin was the prime minister. So it turns out in 1995, which is when Paul Martin realized, okay, we need to balance this budget or else we're going to be a problem. So Carney in 1995 was a student in England at the time. So I don't know how he would have helped advise Paul Martin balance the budget back then. Interesting. He must really have connections. And then in 1998, when the books were actually balanced, Carney was already a banker working in New York City or Hong Kong. And like, I don't know why he would say this. He only started working as a bureaucrat in 2004. So I don't know why he would say something like this. And then the second biggest lie of all, and it's not a direct lie, it's an indirect lie, is the carbon tax. All he is doing is just moving the carbon tax from the consumer over to private industry. And
Hmm.
a lot of people right now, they're calling it an industrial carbon tax. So it's still going to have the same effect on Canadians. We're just not going to see it directly on the bill. So, for example, if I open up my Energeer bill to heat my house, you can actually see the line items like, okay, this is your carbon tax, and then you have a bunch of other costs and a bunch of other fees that I'm always confused about. And then you see the actual energy bill you're paying. It's like $80, and the rest is like $350 in charges. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we're going to see. I would assume we're going to see less of those line items, and they're just going to pass it on to industry, which in turn is still going to drive up the cost of living for Canadians. So I've taken a lot of time. I'm going to let you kind of answer this, but yeah, I just see this as more of the same, and it seems clear to me that the media are capitalizing. They're making a crisis out of Donald Trump. Now, is him implementing tariffs going to be a crisis? Remains to be seen. But they're definitely drawing a reaction out of Canadians. They're making Donald Trump out to be the bad guy. And again, I just want to reiterate, I don't like what he's doing either right now. But they're making him the bad guy, and then they're associating Pierre Poilievre, because he's conservative, to Donald Trump. And therefore, the only way that we can fight Donald Trump is if we elect Mark Carney. And my last point, because I forgot this, is the fact that he is here saying that he is going to fight Donald Trump and he's going to keep Canada safe. He's going to keep Canadian jobs in Canada. Coming from a guy who just moved 4,000 jobs in Brookfield over to New York. I mean, like, come on, guys. Like, this, you can't make this stuff up. And the media are not asking the tough questions.
They're not asking a tough question for sure, but we know this. The mainstream media is very strongly at best, very strongly left-leaning, liberal biased. At worst, absolutely a propaganda arm of the Liberal Party. That cannot be argued whatsoever. I wanted to touch on a few points that you brought up. First of all, about Carney, the first thing that really kind of like screws me up a little bit is that 3 months ago he was an absolute nobody. Like, not to say nobody, he's accomplished, but in the political landscape of Canada was a nobody. Nobody knew him. Nobody had heard of him, right? You start like 20 at the start of 2025, it was not a name that people even knew. And today he's the prime minister.
Just a fun fact. I'm sorry to cut you
Uh-huh.
off there. Fun fact: Mark Carney's name is on the Canadian $20 bill, the older Canadian $20 bill. Just a fun fact.
Oh, yeah, he was
Go
the
ahead.
governor, of course.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
are you sure it's the governor of the bank and not the? Because I believe it's the receiver general that puts his name on the bill. Is it?
I saw it on TikTok, and there was actually like a screenshot.
I
Unless the guy photoshopped what he saw
could.
unless it was photoshopped, but it was basically like Mark Carney's there. Maybe it was photoshopped, but I'm just saying. I found
I
that.
regard.
Sorry to cut you off.
The fact that 3 months ago he was a nobody, and now today he is the second coming of Christ. I mean, the media and the people are talking about him like he will save Canada whatsoever, right? Like it's I don't know. Again, it's maybe cognitive dissonance. I don't know. I call it personally the herd mentality, but that's another topic for another time. Regarding his financial disclosures, you mentioned that he has 180 day. Is that for prime minister? Because from what I've read, and I'm not perfect on this, it's for members of parliament. And since he is not a member of parliament, he is actually, and this is a loophole, but he is exempt fully for however long he wants, as long as he's not an MP, from disclosing his personal assets for ethics reasons.
I got the gentleman that I listened to was a
Hmm.
former. He was the he worked for Paul Martin. He was a Liberal MP, and it was 120 days. So I'm going by what he said.
Mhm.
And again, it's not like some guy is not some conservative hack trying to throw Mark Carney. He's basically just talking about, hey, by the way, I don't really like this guy, and the Liberal Party of today is not the same as the Liberal Party of back when I was running it. We actually had like fiscal responsibility, and we would try to do certain things. So I'm going off of what an old Liberal MP said, but we'll fact check in the meantime. But
Sounds
I'm
good.
going off 120 days.
Yeah, because I know for a fact it's true for an MP, but I think the ethics kind of disclosure is tied to the Parliament or the House of Commons and not necessarily the position, the office of Prime Minister directly, because I know it's something all MPs have to do regardless. So if it is indeed true that the Prime Minister does not have to, ah man, what a beautiful fucking loophole. But again, just the fact that he said, again, another lie. He said pre his crowning that he would indeed, once he becomes Prime Minister, disclose such things. And now that he has won the leadership race and as such will become the prime minister, he says, you know what? I'm not going to disclose it right away. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's I liken it to the same thing as the chancellor, the presumed chancellor of Germany, who will eventually become the chancellor, right before the election, saying, and that's the leader of the CDU party here, the Christian Democratic Party, saying that we will close the borders once we form governments if I become chancellor. And the
Mm-hmm.
very elected or that his party won the majority and he became the presumed chancellor of Germany. Within 24 hours, he goes on TV and says, "We have no intention of closing the borders. We will continue to allow immigrants to come in." Unvetted, unchecked. That it is to me the most obvious flip flop ever, but I feel like Carney is kind of following that.
Mm-hmm.
Brookfield. Yeah, not only did they officially petition against Canadian pipelines, only to invest God knows how much in foreign countries' pipelines. Not only did they offshore jobs to New York City, like you said, and you're 100% spot on, but on top of that, something that came out recently is that Brookfield, through 40, I believe, entities in various countries and jurisdictions, are the number one, and this is an article I have to find, but they are being accused as being the number one tax evasion company or tax evading company in Canada. They, again, through a strategy of incorporating 40 entities in various jurisdictions, are effectively reducing their tax rate to near nothing. So, again, and mind you, it's a corporation. It's a big corporation. I cannot put the blame on the back of only one man. However, he is the chairman of Brookfield. The buck officially truly stops with him. He is at the head of the board of director. You know, he has fiduciary duty by the shareholders to do what's right. And you cannot, and I get it on a corporate level, you want to reduce your taxable burden. I am all for that. I don't like paying
Yeah.
taxes. I'm also not running for prime minister saying that, you know what, we need to increase taxes, for example, or carbon tax or whatever. It is, again, a lie, disingenuous, and two-faced. My last point that I wanted to make, though, is that you said it's like Trudeau 2.0. I would go as far as to say it is incredibly or considerably more dangerous than Trudeau. Because whereas Trudeau was a beautiful frontman, and I think he was eloquent, well presented, and people liked him, and he was likable. I'll give him that.
Yeah, he
Uh,
was.
I do think he lacked the intellect, and he was
Mm-hmm.
being told what to do through his party and advisors like Carney. Carney, on the other hand, I do think is an incredibly intelligent man. And that becomes that much more dangerous if his ambitions or his whims are not aligned with that of Canada. And I don't think that he has Canada's best interests at heart. I read this morning someone saying, why would I not trust Carney? He left a lucrative business and lucrative jobs in order to run for prime minister. That is the opposite of selfish. And I replied to this person, it was on X, and I said, it's quite the opposite. Once you reach the pinnacle of wealth, right? And he's made millions of dollars. I mean, for fuck's sakes, I was watching his confirmation hearing at the Bank of England as governor of Bank of England. He was being grilled for receiving a compensation of £800,000. That's like 1.8 million Canadian dollars. And that's just one thing. His compensation is all the boards and the stock options and whatnot. He's in the multi-zillion dollars. Once you reach the pinnacle of wealth, it ain't money you're after. Money doesn't matter. Leaving
No, it's power.
it is exactly that. It is power that you're after. His money has been made. He will never run out of money. Just all the millions he has invested in all the assets he has, that's generational wealth that will pay dividends and appreciate over time. He is not after more money. He is after power. So leaving those lucrative jobs in order to become the leader of an entire sovereign nation is, again, reaching a pinnacle of power. So I don't necessarily on that account believe that he is selfless. I believe that it is a selfish move, and his actions will dictate whether he has Canada's best interests at heart or not. But based on his policies and effectively the economic disaster Canada's been in when he was the chief economic advisor to the prime minister, I sadly don't think that he has Canada's best interests at heart because, and I'll end on this point, he's been quoting on saying that to save the planet and to save the world, we need to reach zero in terms of emission. This, again, coming from someone who now leads the country that produces 2% of the world's greenhouse gases and who relies heavily on energy exports and energy production, I think this will be a catastrophe for our economy and the lives of Canadians.
Okay, so no, just back to the point earlier, he does have to disclose his
Oh.
financial interests. So that's according to who? CTV 12 minutes. Oh, CTV reported. So who knows? But we'll see. But just the point earlier. I mean, if it is true, I mean, it would make perfect sense for him to have an election sooner rather than later. Honeymoon phase, and he probably doesn't want to disclose all those financial interests. Again, I don't know what all his financial interests are.
Well, about the election, real quick, is that I do tend to harbor on your side, on your opinion, that the election will happen sooner rather than later, for the simple fact. I did mention it here. We might have on the pod a candidate for the Conservative Party for a specific riding that I will not name quite yet until it's confirmed. And I've seen that he is already launching his kind of like campaign. He has like a campaign launch event scheduled for the end of March or beginning of April. So I believe that political parties are in the know that an election will be coming very soon, and as such, are starting to put their pieces on a chessboard. But that's speculation, of course.
Interesting. I just like it. It makes me. I'm just gonna take a little tangent here. It makes me sad that in a country like Canada, we can't have differences of opinion, and I feel like now a lot of people, conservatives are guilty of this as well. So it's happening on both sides, but like the divide that's happening in this country and how much the media and the narrative is riling everybody up just to put one another against each other. And again, I'll repeat myself. They are doing an excellent job with regards to the political gamesmanship of making Donald Trump out to be the bad guy and associating Pierre Poilievre to Donald Trump, calling him the Maple MAGA. They are doing a very good job at that. I'll tell you. And we were talking about this a little bit. I think it was last week. If you are a political, what's the word I'm looking for? Political. You're trying to come up with a strategy for your political party. Right now, I mean, this is an absolute curveball for the Conservatives, considering what Donald Trump is doing with the tariffs. And they've kind of backed themselves up into a corner because they don't really know what to do. Like, okay, do we say that we're against MAGA? And then we've been discussing this as well. I would say half the Conservative Party, half of them are like, no, this is fine. Canada deserves this. And the other half of the party are kind of like, no, like screw this guy. I don't want to like be associated. Like, I don't like what he's doing to our country at all. So they have really backed themselves up into a corner. But I will say this: the just go back to one of the main points. CBC is definitely, obviously propping up the Liberal government.
Yep.
I have a question for you. So, what percent of CBC's overall revenue comes from taxpayers? Just take a guess.
A quarter of it.
According to Grok, it's 70%.
Oh.
Now, if this is true, if you're CBC and the Liberals, you obviously want the Liberals to win, but if this is true and Pierre Poilievre does get elected and he does succeed in cutting the funding for CBC, which he's explicitly said, now whether it will happen or not remains to be seen, but if he actually succeeds in that, CBC doesn't have a network anymore and they cease to exist, they're going to go bankrupt. They don't have the viewership to prop up that entire organization. That's a fact if it's actually at 70%.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just another reason the CBC, the legacy media in Canada, they have a financial interest in making sure that the Liberals or the NDP get elected. And this is the type of stuff that I want to kind of like talk about with you today. Is that I'm not trying to say that you should vote Liberal or you should vote Conservative or you should vote NDP or you should vote Green or PPC. I'm not telling you who to vote for. What we are trying to do today is present you guys with the facts. And CBC and legacy media are not doing a good job of actually presenting the facts of this candidate. And I would go as far as saying they're actually trying to hide information. And I was actually surprised to see, I can't pull it up right now because I don't know how to do this, but even on CBC, I couldn't believe they aired this. So the first thing CBC, the lady said, she goes, yeah, so he explicitly said he's going to axe the carbon tax. And then there was a gentleman next to her and he goes, he's not going to axe anything. He's just going to shift it from the consumer over to the private industry. And it's true. And he's been caught in interviews explicitly saying this. So it's like, and the last part, so I'm just reading my notes right here. I asked this. I had a guest on the podcast yesterday in person, a very interesting lady from Ukraine. I got to ask her some nice opinions. Very, very, very well educated. Runs a transport company, successful. You get along with her. She's a techie. And one of the questions that I asked her, I'm like, what do you think? Like, for example, there's obviously a coordinated effort for countries in the West with regards to immigration. Now, agree or disagree, there's definitely something going on. Like Canada, per capita, the immigration was the highest in the world last year or the year before. So I don't know where it's coming from. And I have a hunch it's coming from the WEF. Maybe I'm wrong. And Daigneault Smith put it best. She's just like, because the CBC and also too legacy media in the United States, it's the same thing. They're like, big deal. What's like, well, who cares? He's part of the WF. They have different interests than Canadians. And Daigneault Smith said, I'm not comfortable. They asked her, what's the problem with WF? She goes, I'm not comfortable with billionaires bragging about how they can control politicians. And if you just have a conglomerate of billionaires, at this point, to your point earlier, it's a game. It's a game for them. They're trying to gain power. They're trying to gain influence. If you have $5 billion or $1 billion or $500 million, you have more money than you know what to do with. You're never going to run out of money. So what's the next thing that you can do? And I agree with you 100%. He's not financially invested in this because he already has more money than he knows what to do with. He wants power. He wants influence, just like a lot of other politicians. So I'm not faulting him for that. But it's just, you're right. If you were to just present who you are for who you are, I think the vast majority of Canadians wouldn't have an issue for this because it's like, I don't know. I feel like I haven't got to know this guy well at all. You know what I mean? Like I still don't know who he is, and I just think he's saying all these things, and it's like, bro, why are you being so shifty?
We know nothing about him. I was having this discussion with actually my father. We call back and forth because he's super involved politically as well. And he's like, after Carney was crowned as the liberal leader, I wondered, does he even have a family? Is he married? Does he have kids? I had to like look it up and like find this information because we know nothing about him. We know nothing about where he comes from. At least with Trudeau, he had been in a public eye, had been an MP for a while. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like with Podiev, this guy.
I voted for Trudeau back in the day. Like I liked it, and the first time around I voted for him. But like
uh,
I like the guy. I'm like, you know.
but so with the WEF, with the World Economic Forum, I mean, look, we have sometimes I like to watch some of their forums. They publicly disclose it. Like I don't want to say they publicly disclose everything, but a lot of their forums and their speeches are available online for free. Like it's publicly accessible information. And you have Klaus Schwab, who is the leader or the chairman of the WEF, flat out saying and bragging, by the way. It's at a point where they believe they're so powerful, they can brag openly about it. Nobody can do shit. Saying, yeah, we've pretty much infiltrated every strata of every Western governments. We have
Yeah.
some of in all of them. I mean, again, this is black on white. But one thing I've learned, and this I learned from actually our first ever developer, and it's kind of shifted my perception of everything going on in the world since then. He was a little bit of a He was an oddball. Okay, that guy was an oddball. Louis, if you listen to me, Louis Goulet, you know you're an oddball. He says it himself. And he was very big on security. Like, I mean, way too big on security for at the time we were tiny. We had like 3 users. Nobody cares. But I mean, he would make some of the wildest security fucking architecture around. And at one point, he had to send me a special kind of like access key for a server we're using. And he sent it to me in an email, in the middle of an email, like just like replying to an email, like, oh, yes, the weather is good in Montreal. I'm going to go get some smoked meat. And then I'm just like, okay, but where's the key? And then he calls me. He's like, Elliot, uh, the key is smoked meat. And I was like, why didn't you just say that? Elliot, the best way to protect yourself is to hide in plain sight. Always hide in plain sight. And that made me laugh. But what I'm trying to say here is that these individuals are openly saying their game plan, openly bragging about what they have and what they're doing. And it works so well because it is so far-fetched at times and so wild of statements to say, hey, we've infiltrated every strata of every Western government. It's a very far-fetched claim, but it's the best way to hide. You're openly saying it. You're admitting it to the world. Nobody believes you. One of the best way to lie, by the way, this is a psychological trick. I kid you not. I'm not saying I've done this before. Disclaimer. All right. But it's to say the truth, right? It's just to say the truth. If someone's like, um, fuck, what did you do this weekend? I don't know. Like, fuck, I want to use some stupid fucking example here, but I robbed a couple jar of Nutella from the grocery store. And they're like, I know, but seriously, what did you do? Yeah, I robbed a couple jar of Nutella from the grocery store. You say something that could be like seen as like a little odd, but it's the truth. They're not going to believe you. It's just kind of weird. So apply this to whatever you want. Where were you? I was at the bar with a girl that I'm cheating on you with. No, seriously, like, well, where were you? I was at the bar with a girl I was cheating on you with. Okay, and then you just move on to another topic. Anyways, so they say it. The WF says it, and I'm inclined to believe it. I'm inclined to straight up believe that they have integrated themselves in every strata of government, and I do think that Carney is directly tied to them. Period.
Oh no, he is like he is affiliated with them. Chrysler Freeland was as well. Justin Trudeau was as well. And I think this is one of the reasons why. What was her name? I got it here. Ruby Dalla. Again, this was not covered, or this was barely covered by CPC. They literally kicked her to the curb. They said, I think the election interference, or I don't know, and they didn't explain themselves. And she found out on Twitter that the Liberals essentially canceled or they barred her from running in this campaign to become the next prime minister. They barred her. And she found
Yep.
out on Twitter. And then she, right after that, had an interview on CBC with the bald gentleman. I don't remember his name. And so he's asking the questions, and he's kind of in shock too. And Ruby Dalla goes, this is the first time I'm hearing that I've been disqualified from this prime minister race. And he's like, really? Like they never came to talk to you? No, no one came to talk to me. I found out on X. Now I'm talking to you on CBC. So the point that I'm trying to make is this doesn't seem very democratic. And back to my other original point, we as Canadians were allowed to ask these questions. And I want people, as opposed to getting all riled up by the media and the media's, oh, Donald Trump, oh, you like Pierre Poilievre, you must like Donald Trump too, up yours. Like, let's all relax, let's take a chill pill, let's try and look at this objectively. And if we
Mm-hmm.
were to actually look at an election, we're allowed to ask questions for the person that is going to be running our country. And I don't like the fact that the media is essentially covering for him. I don't like this. So that, yeah, go
But
ahead.
furthermore, and this again is why I keep saying, and maybe to some it sounds a little bit of a crazy claim, but that's why I'm saying it was a crowning of the liberal leader because there were two individuals in the race that actually stood a chance against Carney, that actually had a base, an organic base, by the way, okay, that seemed to be able to support them. The first was Chandra, okay, which was my first pick for the liberals for various reasons. And he was disqualified, especially after he said the whole, I don't know how to speak French. He was pushed aside by the liberal elite. We don't even really know why. But the one that came from the ashes of Chandra, who is also a minority, by the way, both of them of Indian descent, right? So the two minorities, was Ruby Dalla. Very eloquent lady. I don't necessarily agree with
Yeah,
all of her politics. Very
me
eloquent.
either.
She's young. She's got a good message and capable of penetrating the younger demographic. That sounds so fucking bad. I hate using that word, but she's capable of, being able to disseminate her
Disseminate.
message
Yeah. Yeah.
to the younger demographic. And she was completely pushed out of the way. And the claim was that it was indeed foreign interference. And the way they said it is because she received apparently 5 donations to her campaign by 5 individuals that were all using the same credit card. That is the claim the Liberal Leadership Party used to say that she was, contravening to the rules of the campaign. To me, again, it just seems like push aside everyone. I liken it to what happened with the Democratic Party and Kamala Harris. It was, look, there's no
Kamala.
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 There was no race. It was, this is going to be our leader. This is going to be our chosen one. Carney was exactly the same, the chosen one. And the disingenuous part in all this is that the liberals love to be the party of diversity, the party of feminism. We still have Trudeau. I think his last fucking speech was saying about how he's deeply a feminist. And yet, when you have diverse candidates and or women candidates, they are completely tossed and pushed aside in favor of the chosen person, which is in this
They're
case,
they're they're there almost as props.
yeah,
I hate to say it, like it's literally just. And there was a female. She was a former MP for the Liberal Party. She went on the Jordan Peterson podcast, and she essentially said that she's like, I felt like I was a prop. So she would be invited to the White House for the dinners, and basically, well, sorry, just invited to the White House. She thought she was going to go there. She's all excited. I'm going to be able to go on the dinner. This is amazing. And basically, it's like, no, you're not coming to the dinner. You're just here so for the appearance. And then it happened on numerous occasions. And in the podcast she was talking about, she goes, am I here just because I'm black? That's, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
obviously they're not going to say it out loud, but she said, she's like, I felt like a prop.
mm,
And again, it's like all we're trying to do, you and I here, is just basically bring this to the attention of everybody.
yep,
And I'll just repeat myself again. It's a shame that we can't even discuss this as Canadians, and we're going to get a bunch of hate for some of these clips, I'm sure. And the fact that you even doubt Mark Carney or just want to ask questions, you're not allowed. You must be in support of Donald Trump if you don't like Mark Carney. And that's the narrative that they're trying to push. And that's the narrative, by the way, and it seems to be working. I don't think it's working to the extent that they are portraying, but I still think it's working nonetheless. And I was talking about this with my father. There are a lot of boomers, dude. It's a touchy subject. Like if you're not for Carney, the next question they're going to ask is, "Are you a Trumper?" Like it's
yep.
literally it's crazy.
They do a very good job, and they've done that back in the day with the DEI sphere as well, of
Yeah.
putting people in categories. They categorize you in order, and it's the oldest trick in the book, divide and conquer. So you divide everyone into categories, and then after that, you can pin categories against one another. That is the oldest trick in the book. Yeah, man. Look, overall, I'll end on Carney because it's pretty much all I had to say about him. But I'll end on the point that I
We said
hope
a lot.
yeah, I hope I'm wrong because if Carney does good, so does Canada, and I want Canada to do good. I will always support someone, even if he's from the other party, that I disagree with, but I'll support him if Canada stands to win, right? I don't have an allegiance to a party, by the way. Well, sorry, I have to say I have an allegiance to the Liberal Party because I did register, and if I don't have an allegiance to them, I am passible of a $10,000 fine. For real, it's fucking insane. But I am canceling my membership. But anyways, I hope Carney does good. My hopes are zero, however, and I do believe that Canada will continue to fare horribly due to some points that I suppose we will move on to talk to. So, China on Saturday announced retaliatory tariffs on some Canadian agricultural goods, hitting back after Ottawa slapped import duties on Chinese-made electric vehicles and steel and aluminum products. Beijing said a 100%, I repeat, a 100% tariff would be imposed on Canadian rapeseed oil cakes, and peas, while a 25% levy would be placed on aquatic products and pork originating in Canada. The tariffs are scheduled to come into force March 20th, according to a statement from China's Custom and Tariff Commission. This measure comes amid the brewing global war that we're seeing right now. And just so you know, this is due to Canada imposing 100% import tariffs on Chinese-made EVs
Mhm.
last year. So once again, Canada started this whole thing. And fuck, why aren't we talking about? Again, that's another thing. We talk about Orange Man bad, and Donald Trump is apparently raping our economy. But why are we talking about China now attacking Canada? What's going on there?
I just want to say one point too before we get started. If on the electrical vehicles, because this was implemented 6 months ago ish, let's say,
Hmm.
100% tariffs on all Chinese vehicles. So I don't know. I just find it a little bit counterintuitive and goes against what they're talking about. They want to accelerate electrical vehicle adoption as quickly as possible in order to save the environment. So
Yeah.
if consumers can get lower priced cars from China and therefore the adoption of electric vehicles will be quicker, why are we putting 100% tariff, or why have we put an 100% tariff on Chinese vehicles? So there's something that doesn't add up there. And
Curtis, you're logical right now. Come on, be 14 Canada and just fucking blindly accept what's going on. Stop asking questions. No, but your
so
point is an excellent point.
yeah, and so there's that, and again, there's a lot of hypocrisy, and every politician can be hypocritical. There's hypocrisy all over the place, but that's definitely an example of hypocrisy.
Mm,
Um, and I'm going to go back to the same point. Why is nobody talking about this? Because it doesn't fit the narrative. And the narrative, like you said, Orange Man bad. Mark Carney needs to fight Orange Man. And that is, we are going to hammer, hammer, hammer the fact that Donald Trump is imposing these tariffs. And by the way, it's funny that we even stopped talking about the tariffs because one day they're on, one day they're off, one day they're on, and then this was up, and then this was down, and then like so we basically I'm like, okay, this is way too complicated to follow.
mm,
And also too, I really, and even some American, even some like conservative Americans, they're starting to say, like, dude, if you're a business person, and Donald Trump, he's being all over the place with the tariffs. If you're a business person, it's like, Donnie, can you just give me like a number so I can work with, so I can know whether to invest or not to invest, or I have to move capital here, move capital there. I still don't know what his strategy is. I don't think he knows what his strategy is either. I think he's kind of just throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks. But who knows? We can't get inside of the guy's head. But yeah, the fact that none of this is the fact that none of this the Chinese tariffs is being mentioned in legacy media is because it doesn't fit the narrative. And right now they are gearing up for an election. They have to fear, 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 fear. We are in a crisis. We need Mark Carney. We need the Liberals. We need the Liberal NDP coalition in order to fight Donald Trump. Without them, we are going to lose. And I'll just kind of finish with this last point on that. I don't think for a second that there is nearly as much support for Mark Carney as the media will lead us to believe. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. But I just have a feeling that it is not true. And, propaganda, to your point that you made last week, it works. Propaganda works. And so you'll go to these like you'll go to the not a seminar but the rallies, and it'll make it look like there's all these people and that everybody loves him. From my sources that I collected, apparently the Pierre Poilievre rally that took place 5-6 days ago, were the 11th today. Apparently there was a lot more people at the Pierre Poilievre rally. So I don't think there is nearly as much support for Mark Carney as CBC will lead us to believe. And
mhm.
I think the reason that they want um, the Liberals to win, the biggest reason of all, amongst the many, is the fact that they are petrified of them losing federal funding for their media. Because if they lose federal funding, they might not have a business at all. So I think that's what they're most petrified about. And I think everybody is just kind of I don't think anyone actually cares, at least the politicians and the media companies. I don't think, including the conservatives, by the way, I don't think they really care that much about the country in general. I think they're just trying to get reelected.
Yeah, yeah. And I am absolutely on the same point as you when it comes to the it does feel like Mark Carney is not organic. Again, it was just propped up from start to finish. I don't remember exactly the number, but his YouTube channel posted like a ridiculous amount of videos over the last few weeks, call it 80 plus videos. I don't know exactly the number. and it's garnered a few thousand followers or subscribers over that time. Had we done, I mean, you and I, we post way less than that, like in terms of fucking amount, and yet growing much faster. That's organic, real organic following, and the engagement that we have on our content is present as well. I mean, for fuck's sake,
By the
some
way,
of our
someone asked if we pay for content, all organic. We don't pay for any ads over here
all
at the Right Club Podcast.
And I have been, by the way, because I've been personally accused of being a Russian paid shill or a paid by the conservative guys. This is free. I wish I was being paid. And by the way, Curtis and I, we want to start making money from this, so we might look at some ways to make money. But right now, guys, this is actually a net loss. I'm not going to answer the finance, but overall, the podcast is losing money. It's not making money. Let's just
We're
go
bad.
with that.
We're bad business guys.
We're, you know what we are? We're running a tech company style. It's all about burning, baby. All about burning money. So I don't think it's organic at all whatsoever. And it's again, ever since USAID broke into the US, we realized that a lot of government money gets sent to through various channels, but it comes back into the pockets of organizations that fund or that push or that promote certain narrative. And this is when you start realizing, and for me, it confirmed what I knew for the longest time, but that a lot of different topics, different philosophies, and different ideologies are completely propped up, absolutely propped up, and it is not an organic. It's not a grassroots movement. It's not organic, and this applies to certain politicians. I mean, we saw with Kamala again. You had Trump, packing stadiums, and you could verify that. And you had like Kamala, who legitimately they had to set up the cameras and everything and put everyone like real close to make it seem like it was packed. And she was giving a speech to 80 people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
All donors. Way. They're not like 80 people who came and like fucking, big super fans. Same with Carney. Absolutely. And the narrative, and again, for me, it's like Team Canada, right? Because Team Canada freaks out over a 25% US tariff threat because the media tells them to, but
Mm-hmm.
not China 100% tariff because they weren't told to. It's just the fact that we only get mad when instructed. That's what it says everything for me about how easily controlled I would say our population can be, and I don't want to say like Canadians are easily controlled, but I mean maybe our reliance on the mainstream media or our confidence or trust in that
But and just to add to that, I don't. Millennials are not. So I'll disagree with you there with regards to millennials. Some millennials are, but far fewer than boomers. But I think the reason I spoke about this with the gentleman, Andy Roy, he's no longer with us. He died from a brain aneurysm. God rest his soul, but he was a really good guy. And I asked him that one day because he was older. He was 65 when he died like 5 years ago. But anyways, he was in his 60s. So I'm like, why do you guys trust, legacy media so much? He goes, because we grew up around CBC and they would actually hold politicians accountable. And so that trust, I feel like it's twofold. So there's number one, well, I've always trusted them. Why wouldn't I trust them anymore? And then the second part for a lot of boomers, not all, but a lot of boomers, why they still trust it is because if in fact the media institution has been hijacked, it's almost like a shot to their ego in the sense that this can't be. This is not the Canada that I know, and there's no way that us as Canadian, they're proud to be Canadian. There's nothing wrong with that, but
Mhm.
they're probably like, no, an institution like this, it would never be corrupted. I don't believe that it's corrupted, and I still trust it. And I think that's probably another reason why they still believe legacy media.
It's a good point, and because it goes into a little bit further into psychology and the psyche of human beings. If the source of your trust, if the source of the authority that you believe to be good turns out to be false and was a betrayal all along, you lose a foundation for your belief and for
Yeah.
even identity. So it's almost as if no matter how much it's, what it is, it could be even a form of Stockholm syndrome. I'm no psychologist, but it could be a form of Stockholm syndrome, or it could also just be the whole. You're more likely to want to reinforce a belief that you have, even if all logic or all facts point to point to the
The
case that it
opposite.
is
Yeah.
exactly, because the reverse, the flip side, being confronted with the fact that you were wrong or that you've been wronged, is just too much to bear, too much to handle. So people rather a comforting lie than the harsh truth.
And
I don't know.
I think I would agree, and I think that's one of the reasons why people get so upset and why people are so divided right now. You know,
Mhm,
Orange Man bad. You like Pierre Polyev, that must mean you like Orange Man. Orange Man's trying to take over our country. You, as a Canadian, we need to stand up to Orange Man. That's literally like kind of the narrative that's going on right now. So I think that's why
mhm.
they get they like there's some there are some people they get really upset if you
Oh,
don't agree with what the narrative is today in Canadian media. They get
yeah.
really, really, really upset. And it's like, guys, dude, or miss. Can we all relax and take a chill pill? We're allowed to have discussions. And again, I'll just reiterate the fact
Mhm,
Mark Carney is the new Prime Minister of Canada. We're allowed to ask questions. And the fact that the legacy media is not asking him any questions is concerning to me. This wasn't like it wasn't like this 30 years ago. Also, the Liberal Party
mhm.
was completely different 30 years ago. This is
Yeah.
the Liberal Party of Canada today is a socialist party. Let's call a spade a spade.
Yep. It
You
is.
know,
Yes.
so and again, if you're going to argue against that, then that's your own prerogative. But it's like, yeah,
But and this is another thing too. And to bring it back to the tariffs, I guess it all plays into it, right? But I saw this data set, and I did not send that graph. I didn't think we'd really be talking much about tariffs today, but it analyzed the impact on inflation on Canadian products based on the counter tariff responses of Canada. So, of course, Donald Trump imposed tariffs on our goods coming into the US. Get it. However, why did we have to retaliate? To protect our industries? Okay, maybe. But have we done a cost reward analysis? Do we stand to lose more economically from putting counter tariffs? Or do we gain from such a thing? And is it with the mentality that putting counter tariffs will shorten the duration of this trade war and as such maybe get us back on track faster? Because the graph, all data shows that every single counter tariffs proposed by Canada and implemented on the US exacerbates inflation for Canadians by huge amounts. I don't have the exact number, but I'll send you the graph. This increased inflation hurts directly the already incredibly weak Canadian economy. And we're at a point right now where we started um, cutting down the interest rates already. And if inflation increases, we're going to be between a rock and a hard place because we need to continue to lower the interest rates in order to prop up the economy. But if our inflation is being exacerbated by the tariffs that we artificially put, not Trump, we chose these tariffs on American products, then we're at a point where what do we do? Do we increase interest rates and absolutely catastrophically implode the economy? Or do we enter
it can't
perhaps
happen. They but
we can't
they can't. It'll be runaway inflation. They can't raise rates at this point
that's
in time.
and that leads to that. Do we
Yeah.
let runaway happen? Because it can lead to, and I don't want to go to the hyperinflation state,
Yeah,
but
it won't be that, but it'll. Yeah,
so it's that's just the only thing is that we just right away decided Trump attacked Canada. It's like an attack. It's an affront to Canada. We must counter. Well, again, is the pill, is the medicine worse than the disease? The same thing happened during the Rona. It's like, are the measures we're putting in place worse off than just letting the disease run in society? And no study, no debate was ever happened. It's like, no, we must close everything. Well, it's the same with a tariff. It's not like, okay, let's take a reasoned approach, look at data, and make the best decision for Canada as a whole. No, it's we must fight back. And then again, people rile up behind it without asking questions. And Curtis, you're 100% right. Why can't we ask questions and want to have this discussion to know what's the best course of action? Why must it be this is a decision taken and we all rally behind it, come hell or high water? And the people who don't are, and I quote some people who have said that, traitors to Canada. I mean, Daniel Smith, to me, is the voice of reason right now. She's the one saying, you know what? We don't need to be enemies. Let's discuss this. And she's being called a traitor by the rest of
I
Canada. That's
know,
not.
I know, and I think there's two main reasons why they're putting counter tariffs. Reason number one, politically it looks strong. Reason number two, they have no skin in the game. None of them operate in the private sector. None of them are going to suffer the consequences of having a counter tariff. Is Trump going to counter? I mean, again, who knows what's going on with these tariff wars? They're changing all the time. But I would agree with you. The fact that they are putting on a counter tariff, I just want to mention this point. Our economy, 20% of Canada's GDP relies on trade with the United States. And I've seen reports up to 2%. So between 1 and 2% of the United States GDP relies on trade with Canada. So again, I think at this point in time, politically, it looks very strong to have a counter tariff against the United States. And also, too, man, I'm going to be honest, a lot of people, I'm not saying all people, but there are a lot of people where if you were to ask, hey, can you explain to me what a tariff is? I don't think they could necessarily be able to explain it to you. And I'm not trying to I'm not saying you're stupid, but it's just, again, you're kind of like, well, yeah, they did it to us, let's do it back to them. And again, should we? This is like a debate. Some people say we should. Some people say, and
Mm-hmm.
even people who are unbiased, and even some conservatives and some liberals. No, we have to push back. No, we shouldn't. So, but just at the end of the day, I really think it's just two things. Politically, it looks strong to impose a counter tariff, and the reason number two is that these politicians don't have skin in the game. And if you're a metal or a steel manufacturer here in Canada, you have skin in the game. And so you're probably going, number one, man, I hope Donald Trump doesn't impose some tariffs, obviously. And then number two, you're going, oh my God, you're imposing counter tariffs. Like this is going to hammer me even worse. A
Yeah,
politician can't see that.
on your company and on your personal consumer level.
Yes. So, like, yeah,
And by
I think it's,
counter tariffs, this is fresh off the Truth Social Press, which literally came out 30 minutes before we hopped on the recording here today. Trump posted that due to Canada imposing unfair 25% tariffs on electricity, which is mostly done by Ontario, by the way. He is instructing his Secretary of, I'm not sure if it's the Secretary of State or Secretary of Commerce that takes care of this, but he's instructing the competent secretary in this on this matter to raise the tariff on steel and aluminum by an extra 25% for a total of 50%.
is that implemented?
It starts, I believe, tomorrow,
April
March
2nd.
12th.
Isn't it April 2nd or something? Oh, this is all over the place.
I thought, yeah, April 2nd is the retaliatory tariff. So, and this is important to note.
Okay.
This is interesting. So Trump, in beginning of March, implemented a 25% blanket tariff on all Canadian and Mexican goods, with a secondary round coming April 2nd. You're 100% right on that. The April 2nd tariffs are called retaliatory tariff. What they will do is raise, exactly quid pro quo. Every tariff implemented on the US will be reciprocated to the T back towards the country. So if Canada say 241% on milk, it will be 241% on milk as well. So these are the two different signed executive orders already in place. But furthermore, as of today, with I believe a implementation date of tomorrow, the steel and aluminum tariffs that are already in place of 25% will be doubled for a total of 50%, up until Ontario backs down on their energy tariffs. So right now we're talking, and this will hammer a lot of Quebec industries, by the way, especially Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean. That's where we have
Yeah, I
the
know.
plant. This is going to be absolutely catastrophic. The 25% was catastrophic, but now at 50%, it's going to hurt the US. Don't get me wrong. The US will hurt as well, but they
Yeah,
have
it's
a
gonna hurt. It's gonna
stronger,
hurt us a lot.
but that's the thing. They have a stronger, more well-diversified economy and less exposure to Canadian steel and aluminum that we do in terms of necessity. We will get hammered so hard, man. Oh,
Yeah, that's not good. Here, let's move on to X. So
yes, sir.
I saw a couple clips. I don't know if there's any validity to this. I really hope there isn't. And they had the lady from the Green Party. I mean, whatever. She's not going to get elected. So she's essentially saying, yeah, we should be banning X. I saw Jagmeet Singh of the NDP saying that, yeah, we should consider banning X. Is this, off the research that you've done, is this actually being seriously contemplated by these particular parties if they want to essentially ban an entire news channel?
It would not surprise me for two reasons. Europe is already talking about it. And furthermore, Canada has implemented certain laws now on the books. I believe is it C31? I'm forgetting which C,
Yeah,
C36.
there's a bunch of C's.
Yeah. Well, they all start with C's because it comes from the House of Commons. If it came from the Senate, it would start with an S. But the Senate, fuck. Speaking of, oh my God, did you see 70 or 90 new appointments to the Senate?
Yeah,
Trudeau,
I did.
disgusting. Anyways,
I did.
I do believe that these laws on the books could be used to indeed bar X from operating under some hate speech claim.
Hmm.
Uh, it's already illegal for Canadians to share news articles on social media, which again, I can't believe the uproar was so minimal. We cannot share news articles on social media for fuck's sakes, guys. Like, wake the hell up. That's insanity. It's hidden under the guise of, fucking royalties and money for media companies, but the media companies were getting free exposure and free networking from it, free views, free reach, free engagement, which is all monetizable, by the way. And now they're getting less.
And
But
by the
as
way, the media companies, especially like independent journalists, they're not happy with this either. This is strictly like, it wasn't like they were lobbying for this. Like, independent journalists are going, dude, that's where I get all of my traffic. I make money off of this. I can make money off AdSense. I can make money off putting ads. There's a lot of people, like it or not, the reality is a lot of people find their news on Facebook. A lot of people find their news on X. And so banning it, it was for different reasons for Facebook. It wasn't under like, oh, there's hate speech or this, that. I think that actually had to do with the business side of I remember reading into it, but this is more just they're not talking about. So it's Facebook that said, okay, well, you can't share anymore because I remember now. Facebook, the the federal government wanted the newspaper or the journalist or whoever was producing the content to get paid, and Facebook's like, no, the payment is the traffic. You can make your money after that. This is different. This is we're just gonna straight up ban X. And again, I don't know if they're actually serious about this. I really hope that they're not serious about this. But the Green Party member mentioned this. Jagmeet Singh has mentioned this. And one of the first things when you really want to control the narrative of a population is you control media dissemination, you control the narrative dissemination. If they succeed in doing this, like guys, this is not okay. Like this is really not okay.
oh, it's insanity. But that was the point I was trying to get at. It's not that the rule that he put on, or Meta stopping articles from being shared on their platform, it was obviously it was done under the economic standpoint initially, but
Yeah.
it's still
Yeah.
all over information, like you said, and you're completely correct. It is the rise of dictatorship and authoritarianism when you cannot share freely information. But furthermore, they have implemented hate speech laws. And this is what I think they will use eventually for X, because that's what Europe is doing already, or they're implementing fines on X because the moderation is not up to the standard that they want. And by the way, this is not conspiracy theory level stuff anymore because it's come out of the US that government officials in the US have pressured and directly asked media companies or social media companies to censor, deplatform, or completely delete certain content that they deem to be inappropriate, right? Doesn't matter what. If you think it can happen in the US, dude, it absolutely happens in Canada and Europe and other countries. It's just not as popular and as spoken about as much. But Canada, I mean, they want to ban X. I understand why. X has become uncontrollable for them because back in the day when it was Jack, right? Fucking at Jack running the show. This guy, I don't want to say he has any, like, it doesn't have the level of conviction that Elon has. Elon is free speech, period. He is so pro free speech and he's not controllable and he's a billionaire. Like, I mean, you can't like, he's willing to lose money. He said it on air during an interview. He's like, if the cost of doing the right thing to protect free speech is me losing money, so be it. Doesn't care. So you can control Elon. You can't control what is being said on X. So what's the next best thing? Ban it, prevent people from ever having access to information that may be embarrassing or counter to what the narrative the government wants people to believe.
Just imagine this right now. So another it's kind of adding fuel to the fire. Imagine if you're CBC right now, how scared you are of. So let's say that Pierre Poilievre gets elected. So Twitter is absolutely taking away business from legacy media. I think they're kind of doing it to themselves as well. Their viewership is diminishing because the only cohort of the population that tend to watch legacy media are the older generation. So number one, they're already losing viewership. Number two, Twitter is taking away users from people like ourselves, millennials. We all go onto X. And number three, the conservatives, if they were to get elected, again, remains to be seen if they actually follow through with this. They're saying we want to defund the CBC. This would put them out of business. So again, I'm just going to reiterate the fact. Think about the corner that legacy media in Canada is in, and try to understand that they want a political party to get elected because their own life is at stake. And this is something that I don't think a lot of Canadians understand or want to understand. But in my opinion, I think this is a reality. And I think this is why they are fighting tooth and nail to make sure that Mark Carney gets elected. Well, he's already in, but that he gets reelected in the next election. And we're going to see this machine just push Mark Carney to the forefront. And I hate to say it, but if we think the division is bad right now, I think they're going to try and manufacture something that's even worse. And I won't be surprised if Canadians all of a sudden are fighting amongst each other. I mean, dude, I've been getting comments even from myself. Some people are like getting pissed at me. They're like, oh, I'm like, okay, look, we're allowed to have a difference of opinion. I'm not telling you what to think, but we live in Canada. Last time I checked, we have free speech. I'm allowed to express my opinion. I'm not trying to shit on you guys and say you're stupid. This is the way I think. You're entitled to your opinion, but I'm also entitled to my opinion. So just try
But
and think about that. Like if you're a viewer, try and just let's take a chill pill, everybody.
but it's an interesting thing is that like I have a couple friends of mine that are at odds with my political belief. And you know what? For the most part, we get along. We don't necessarily like we try not to hold our political beliefs as a subset of our identity. And I do tend to see it more from one side than the other. On one side, your political beliefs are tied intrinsically to your ego and your value, like your self-worth almost, right? And to disagree with you, you become, and sometimes they literally call you a Nazi for it. But like
Yeah.
it, like I've been around, like again, I have some friends who are absolutely at the opposite spectrum. And you know what, man? That's cool. I like them for them, not for their beliefs in society. It's okay to have discourse. I mean, we exchange ideas, we talk about it. It's okay. If you want to have a discussion, let's have a discussion. Let's share ideas, but it does not make the person better or worse. But on the other side of the aisle, let's call it that, they attach malice to your beliefs. You know what I mean? It's like
Mm-hmm.
they himself as righteously saving democracy. Like, I mean, when you start saying that you're saving democracy, what you're doing effectively is you're saying that the other side is tyrannical. And as such, you become righteous in your, at times, even violent attempts at stopping that ideology. And you're seeing it in, especially in the US. I mean, look at what's going on with Musk is being attacked, Teslas are being burned. You know what I mean? Like, it's like ludicrous shit. Guys, holding diverging opinions is not anti-democratic. It's literally the cornerstone of democracy, and it is
Mm-hmm.
neat. It's authoritarian actually to want everyone to think like you, or to label others as extremists for not holding the same view as you. So yes, like you said, a
Let,
chill
let,
pill.
let, let me ask you this.
Mhm,
We live in a utopia. Media doesn't exist. Do
mhm.
you think we're this divided?
No, 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 absolutely not. I believe the media fans and at times even manufactures the division. Absolutely,
I would agree. I would agree.
absolutely. Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
actually,
People. Yeah.
I took away my phone the other day. It was nice, and this is good. Anyone should do this. We so I have my, everyone's guilty of it. You're on your phone too much. You're going through social media and all that stuff, and your brain's just like this. You're getting, it almost causes like anxiety or like
Yeah.
it's just, So I'm like, dude, you're on your phone too much. I put my phone away. Uh, I like immediately just felt better, and I kept wanting to go back to my phone for like just stupid. I hate my phone. I kept wanting to go back to my phone, but it's again, Everyone just needs to take a chill pill. We live in Canada. We don't live in the USSR. We're allowed to have a difference of opinion. We both need each other at the end of the day. The pendulum swung one way. Maybe the pendulum is going to swing back the other way. But we're allowed to ask questions. We're allowed to um, make our political leaders, we're allowed to hold them to account. And if you start telling me that I am crazy or that I'm a Nazi or that I'm a Trump supporter or that I'm whatever just for asking questions that 20 years ago were perfectly normal to ask in a political campaign, you got to look at yourself in the mirror.
Hmm. Oh, big time. Absolutely. Was it this weekend, by the way? Because I noticed that you I think this weekend you took your phone away, right? Is that it? You took a little break from your phone this weekend?
I did kind of, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Notice. Because normally, like either you or I, like tend to reply fairly fast. You'll send me a text, I'll reply to you, like
Mhm.
real quick. This weekend, I was like, yeah, good. And he needs the break. It's
Well,
good.
there's a lot of noise, man.
Oh, for sure.
There's a lot of noise, and like recently on the clips that we've been posting, to be honest, when I don't even like I don't even look at it. I don't check it. I don't do anything because it just honestly it causes anxiety, and I wish it
Mm,
wasn't so divisive. But the only thing, like my goal in this, and I think your goal is pretty similar. I'm just trying to bring to light what I think is going on. And I
hmm
just think like legacy media, they're not really doing their job. And there's a lot of other like independent journalists and a little independent media organizations that are attempting to do their job. And we're just trying to do that and just say, hey, like we're allowed to ask these questions. Citizens of Canada or any country for that matter should also be allowed to ask the questions, and they shouldn't be shot or crucified for asking the
hmm
question because you're saying it goes against the narrative. Like, you know,
Absolutely. But it takes, and I think this is one of the reasons why I guess we're doing this too. One, you need to be able to rationalize points in a concrete manner and being able to express it and explain it well, and that requires eloquence, which clearly you possess. It also
oh,
requires,
thank you.
yeah, I know I'm fucking fluffing you up right now, but there's the ability to be okay with being a target. And it's true. We've drawn a target on our back in a lot of ways, just like Elon has done in the US and whatnot. To be in the public eye, even if we're minuscule in the public eye, requires some people will dislike you. But I mean, again, I see this as it's too important. These ideas are too important not to share. And I want Canada to do better. So you know what? If I can contribute somehow to it by bringing attention to certain issues or to certain points that are absolutely not spoken about in the media, like you said, then so be it. I'll put the target on my back. I don't care. I don't mind whatsoever. You
I
know.
think that's a good place to leave it at, Elliot.
Sure. You don't want to talk real quick about the difference in the
We
divide
had
between
okay. Yeah, we'll finish up with that because I gotta get going. I got 1:45. Okay, I got like 9 minutes in me.
max. Perfect. All right.
Okay,
Well,
go for it.
I fell on this graph, and this is something I hadn't noticed personally in my life, but there is a growing divide, and this is worldwide, by the way, between men and women when it comes to ideology, political ideology, both on the liberal and the conservative side. I sent this graph to Shem, and hopefully we can put it on. But you look at the divide between liberal and conservative. Obviously, this will not come as a surprise. Women tend to be considerably more liberal leaning than men are. But
Yeah,
what I found fascinating in the graph is the pace at which it's accelerating. So whereas men are becoming conservative every year, it's growing at a steady rate, maybe of like 1 to 2% per year. But women are shifting heavily and very rapidly to the left. In some ways, like plus 10% within a couple of years, which is very extreme. And this is represented in the US, huge shift. I mean, women right now are 40% more liberal than men are. Germany, women are 25-ish% more liberal than men are. The UK, we're at 45 fucking 50% more liberal leaning than men are. It's it makes me, and it ties in a little bit to what we mentioned earlier, the liberals who tend to sadly utilize certain groups or individuals as props, but it makes me wonder, why do they keep pandering as being feminists and being so pro women? Not that it's a bad thing, it's just that I believe they do it because they realize that their base is shifting more and more towards the side of women, and as such, they have to pander to it. But their actions congruently do not show. It's
I think also too, and we've talked about this before. I think the US is a different case because there's a different situation with regards to abortion. I think in
Mhm.
Canada, they need to make it crystal clear that they are not pro-abortion. And even though there are some people on some conservative MPs that are against abortion, you're not strictly politics. And again, I want to make it clear, I'm not offering an opinion here on whether I agree or disagree with abortion. It's politically in Canada, it's political suicide to go against abortion. It's
For
absolutely
sure.
political suicide. And I think maybe that's one of the reasons why um, a lot of people, because like American politics are going to dominate world politics. And American politics, it's like unclear whether they're pro abortion or they're against abortion. Um, they gave it back to the states. So if you ask one of my buddies, he asked his girlfriend this, his wife actually, uh, like, would you vote conservative, vote liberal? I would never vote. Lives in Canada. I would never vote conservative. Oh, why? They're against gay people and they're against abortion. And my buddy's just like, that's not true in Canada. And no, well, they said this because the people just associate the conservative of whatever country with Donald Trump and the conservative
Yeah.
party or the Republican party in that country. Maybe that's one of the reasons why. Again, I don't know all
But
the
even
reasons.
further than that, Trump has been known to have plenty of friends in all sphere of life, and he was never attacked or accused of being anti anything until he ran for office. And again, so is it a
Yeah.
media, you know? But further, I also found this one, and I remember seeing it a few years ago, but I think it's interesting. It's a 2020 Pew Research. It's a study that reveals that over half of liberal women actually have been diagnosed with a mental health condition at some point. And
In the U.S.
in the US, this is a Pew Research, yeah. And I'll send you the graph again. I got this last second before hopping on, but um, man, this is obviously I don't want to draw conclusions here, but does this mean there's a correlation between progressive ideas and mental health? That's not what I'm saying, but I mean, it makes you wonder. Like over half of liberal white women under 30 have a mental health issue. Why isn't that seen also on the conservative side? And liberals love to draw that, liberal people or liberal leaning people or tend to have higher IQ or education. But like, okay, let's look at the flip side. There seems to be a lot of mental health issues on the other side. I don't know, man. Personally, I think right now this is also causing, sadly, a societal issue, the drift between women and men in terms of ideologies, because at a time when the birth rate is so low and where the population is more divided than ever, um, we should try to rally together instead of being divided. And yeah, it concerns me. It concerns me to see that women and men are shifting so polar opposites in terms of direction. But most importantly, this explains and rationalizes to me why I don't seem to connect with the Liberal Party, because I feel the Liberal Party is a lot of feel good measures or knee jerk reactions in order to kind of just like make you feel good, make you feel like something is being done, but like concretely, logistically, it just doesn't make sense. But I get it now because, like, again, if you're trying to pander towards a group of the population that tends to care a lot about feelings, emotions, it drives your life a little bit more than logic. I'm going to get crucified for saying this. Well, no shit, your reactions or your policies are going to be catered towards making someone feel good. You're going to say, I'm a feminist. You're going to say, I stand with all women in this instance. But, like, are your actions true? Well, it doesn't matter what your actions are as long as you say it, right? But, us on the men's side, it's more about, okay, he says it, cool, but does his action also match his words? And, well, clearly they're not. And I don't know. It's just, it opens up discussions. That's all I'm going to say. And I'm curious to see what people think of this. It's a touchy
Do
subject.
you
It's not.
think? Yeah, it is. Do you think there's clearly a last question? Do you think these differences, not only amongst men and women, but against different political ideologies, just the way and every Western country it seems are fighting with each other. Every one of them. There's no exceptions, and this is all happening at the same time. Do you think these differences are reconcilable?
I think if we remove the instigator, which we're going to call the media, right, and we just allow people to communicate between each other and not control their ideas, I think, yes, I think we find common ground and we work together. We have to as a species. So we're hardwired to be able to work together. The issue is when you start stirring discord or discourse, sorry. And, you know, the same way that, for example, and this you see more in the US, but it's like if a white guy commits a crime, it's white male shoots up, say, I don't know, 7-Eleven. But if it's a specific group that wants to be minority on the protected class list, it's more like man runs, or like car plows into Christmas market, killing 5. It's not, you know what I mean? It's like just this, the change in words, language can be used to manipulate people and to elicit emotional feelings. And once you realize that and you pay attention, it is blatant that that's what they're trying to do. So yes, I believe those are not irreconcilable differences as long as we remove the fucking instigator in the middle. And it ain't you, it ain't me. We just want to get along, but they're trying to stir shit up. That's my opinion. What do you think on the as a, I guess, closing argument?
I would agree, man. I was just listening to like a podcast with Ray Dalio and Friedberg from the All In podcast. They released 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, a month ago, something like that. And I agree and I disagree with you. And the reason why I'll disagree with you a little bit is Ray Dalio looked at it from a very objective point of view, and he looked at the cycles of how empires rise and how they fall. He has a really good book, Changing World Order. I'm reading one of his other books right now. Very, very intelligent man. He had the biggest hedge fund in the world at one point, super smart guy. And he's basically saying as empires fall, the gap between the rich and the poor gets bigger and bigger because especially if you have a super productive society, well, especially in capitalism, the people who are working the hardest, they're going to be at the top. You have people who aren't working as hard, they're going to be at the bottom. And then you have people that don't have the capacity or the mental bandwidth to actually, someone who's making a lot of money, chances are they're going to be very, very, very smart. Not everyone is born to be that smart. And some people just straight up, they're not able to do that. They don't have the bandwidth in their head to do so. So over time, gap between the rich and the poor gets bigger, their values get bigger, and it becomes irreconcilable differences because this happened before the media existed. Yes, they would have print and stuff like that, but this is before we had our screens, we had our TVs, we had our phones, and eventually people just start to fight with each other as they just start to separate. So I don't know. I don't see this getting better, to be honest. And also, we do have the media to add fuel to the fire. So I don't see this getting better. I honestly see this getting worse. And I honestly see, for us putting podcasts out like this, we're just going to get, from the people that agree with us, they're going to agree with us more and more and more. And the people that disagree with us, they're going to disagree with us more and more and more and more. I think it's going to get worse.
Time will tell. Let's
Yeah.
hope for the best now. But hey, man, another great discussion. It was great.
Guys, we got a new name, the Right Call Podcast. Go check us out. We put a lot of time into the logo. I'm kidding. We went on to ChatGPT and they made a logo for us so we could save some money. We're not monetized. We don't make any money here.
Hey, that's enough, man. The Russian aren't paying.